Well, good afternoon or morning, depending on wherever you're located. One of the benefits of virtual events, I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar being hosted by Sage IT. My name is Michael Guillory. I'm the CMO for Sage IT, and I will be your moderator today. Before we begin, I would like to take care of a bit of housekeeping. In particular, today's presentation/discussion is being recorded and will be made available through our corporate website, sageitinc.com, as well as via our company YouTube channel. We'll also have this made available through our webinar platform that is hosting this event. For those interested, the presentation material will also be available as a PDF on our website. The webinar is intended to be interactive, and as such, provide sharing of information among our featured speaker, panelists, as well as the audience. We've allocated a portion of today's event for questions and answers after the main presentation and panel discussion. I want to encourage all attendees to ask any questions they may have. Our panelists will respond. Questions can be submitted using the questions section in the webinar panel. Should time not allow for us to get to every question, we will provide answers as part of our follow-up. With that, I'd like to now move on to our topic for today, and that topic is Mine Your Journey to Digital Excellence. Indeed, we've seen a lot of change in the last year and a half, both personally as well as in business. Companies today are confronting a changed business environment. While the term digital transformation has become a commonly used and perhaps even an overused term, the need for organizations to evolve from legacy business models to digital business models has only been emphasized by the digital-first business climate we all see today. We have identified 5 key takeaways for our audience based on today's material. The first, the need and challenges of digital transformation. Secondly, the role of process mining in the transformation journey. Third, benefits of process mining solutions. Fourth, use cases of process mining. And fifth, process mining challenges and best practices. Our featured speaker and industry authority for today's discussion on process mining is Amardeep Modi, we refer to as Amar, from the Everest Group. As Vice President at the Everest Group, Amar assists clients on topics related to technology areas across the intelligent automation ecosystem, including robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, process mining, and process orchestration. The basis of today's presentation is drawn from the white paper authored by Amar, which is Mine Your Journey to Digital Excellence. Following Amar's presentation, we will have a brief panel discussion related to the practical use of process mining technology as part of actual customers' transformation journeys. We will then conclude things with an open Q&A welcoming your questions, our audience, regarding process mining and how it can be used in your journey to digital excellence. With that, let's our journey get started. Amar, please say hi to our audience, and I'll let you lead the way.
Thanks, Michael, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Glad to be here, and thank you all for joining. Digital transformation is the need of the hour, and today I'm going to share some key insights from our research on the role of process mining in accelerating digital transformation. Historically, transformation programs relied on levers such as labor arbitrage, ERP, Lean Six Sigma, and were aimed at factors such as cost savings and improving operational efficiencies. Consequently, organizations have been increasingly adopting next generation levers such as digital technologies and design thinking to overcome key business issues such as poor customer experience, increasing regulatory pressure, supply chain disruptions, talent shortage, and uh, high cost structure as the cost benefits from some of the legacy levers have started to reach a saturation level. COVID-19 accelerated this trend by forcing millions of knowledge workers across the world to shift to remote working constructs, as we all know. The new operating model, as a result of this, amplifies the demand for digital interactions and automation more than ever. Organizations are increasingly looking beyond cost and operational efficiencies and orienting their automation digital initiatives with a sharp focus on business resilience and growth. So, while many enterprises have successfully piloted initiatives for low complexity use cases, they continue to struggle with scaling these projects to enterprise wide programs. Only about 20% of the enterprises have really achieved scale, and consequently, the value realized from these initiatives remain much lower than their overall potential. While there are multiple barriers to scale and value realization, identifying and sustaining a healthy pipeline of process optimization and automation opportunities remain one of the key challenges. Without a healthy pipeline, organizations merely have big goals and the urgency to change, but no clear roadmap for success. Now, it is important to note that a healthy pipeline is much more than having a bunch of use cases and opportunities, and is comprised of four key requirements. First, fact-based approach to discover as is processes at scale. Second, ability to identify process optimization and automation potential in an integrated manner. Third, holistic view of the ROI, that is going beyond cost savings while prioritizing the process optimization and automation opportunities. And fourth, ability to continuously monitor the actual impact and ROI of the implemented initiatives and automations. So really, what is causing lack of a healthy transformation pipeline to be one of the biggest challenges for a lot of organizations to scale their digital transformation? Now, when we looked into the key issues there, we found that the organizations are unable to create a healthy transformation pipeline due to a heavy reliance on manual interview-based techniques versus a technology-backed approach. Now, this commonly used approach is plagued with various limitations and challenges, such as extremely time and resource intensive process, resistance from stakeholders in providing necessary details, highly subjective, perception-based, and potentially biased approach. The manual interview-based approach that we typically see organizations adopt, and its inability to capture all process variants and monitor processes on an ongoing and continuous basis. Now, this is where process mining comes, as it blends the power of data-based analysis techniques such as data mining, sequence mining, clustering, association rules mining, and machine learning to help overcome the limitations of manual techniques. It follows a fact-based approach, provides greater depth and breadth of process information, including all types of variants, enables continuous monitoring of process performance and ROI, and is easier to scale than manual techniques. As a result, it carries a huge potential to play a critical role in accelerating scale and value realization across the various stages of an enterprise's digital transformation lifecycle. Now, when we look at the enterprise's digital transformation lifecycle, we see that it can be broken down into 6 stages: discover, design, automate, evaluate, execute, and monitor. Each of these stages feed into the next, making it a continuous loop. Now, let's take a look at each of these stages and the role that process mining plays there. Okay. So starting with discover. Now, digital transformation and other business improvement initiatives typically start with the collection of data from various stakeholders for the discovery of as-is processes. It involves capturing various details about the processes such as hierarchy, ownership, structure, business rules, process steps, and variances and process metrics, including things like turnaround time, cost, and frequency. It is as we discussed earlier, it is traditionally done through interviews, workshops, and focus group discussions, a very manual intensive approach. Now, process mining technologies utilize a fact-based approach, as we discussed, that leverages system event logs or desktop recordings of actual activities performed by users as inputs to recreate process maps and capture process performance metrics and essential step information, such as time, cost, volume, and frequency, to discover the as-is processes. The recreated maps help in visualizing the current process flow, along with possible variances that exist across sectors or geographies or business units. They can also be used to create up-to-date process documentation that can be leveraged for use cases such as training new employees or handing over processes when outsourcing. Now, coming to the next stage, which is design or optimize. After discovery, this is the next stage of digital transformation, as organizations need to design the future state of the processes, and it primarily involves removing redundant, unnecessary steps and standardizing existing workflows to make the processes more efficient. The level of process optimization can really vary widely and is dependent on enterprise requirements. Now, if you look at the role that process mining plays here, process mining really helps identify gaps and optimization opportunities by checking for conformance with defined standard operating procedures or benchmarking them against industry best practices or identified baseline. After gaps and deviations have been identified, process mining can help in root cause analysis by leveraging machine learning algorithms to provide insights into causes of detected process anomalies and discover process vulnerabilities and potential blind spots. The analysis can be used to optimize or design the future state of the processes. Now, the next stage is automate after the processes or the future state of the processes have been designed or the processes have been optimized. The inability to populate automation pipeline is again one of the biggest challenges that we see organizations face when scaling automation initiatives. And a best practice to address this challenge is to really break down complex enterprise processes into their basic constituent parts and then assess the parts for their suitability for automation based on a set of assessment dimensions such as transactional nature, repetitiveness, cost, and volume. Process mining significantly reduces the time and effort required to create a healthy pipeline of automation opportunities as it captures all the relevant information needed to do that. The wealth of the process information captured really enables enterprises to analyze the potential efficiently and based on facts and the associated ROI to really help them prioritize the use cases for deployment. Now, coming to the next stage, which is really for enterprises to evaluate the various process transformation scenarios that enterprises identify in the previous stages to determine and prioritize the optimal or the best case scenario with the maximum ROI and business value. For example, the level of additional investment required to optimize and automate a process beyond a certain point may really surpass the additional benefits delivered. So finding the optimal process state scenario could be an iterative process where enterprises analyzes the impact of various transformation levers to create a business case that kind of maximizes the value expected from it. Now, process mining helps enterprises carry out virtual simulations using data-backed assumptions to test changes and potential impact of transformation levers without sacrificing or impacting day-to-day operations. Now, this provides a data-backed visibility into the potential ROI and helps create or validate the business case, which again, in turn, helps drive senior leadership buy-in and action, which is much needed for driving digital transformation initiatives. Um, the next stage is execute, and to ensure successful execution, enterprises need to consider two crucial aspects: change management and process orchestration. An effective change management strategy ensures frictionless adoption of rolled out changes related to new technology or processes, and act as a key factor to get the most out of the investments made. Now, as part of this process, enterprises need to communicate changes to employees and perform periodic governance to evaluate adoption progress and ensure a smooth transition to steady state, among various other things. And as enterprises scale up, it becomes important for them with the digital levers becoming an important component of the day-to-day life, and really help orchestrate the flow of work across the digital and human workforce. Now, how does process mining help here? Process mining provides operational transparency and helps in conformance checks during the transition stage to see whether employees are following process changes. Process mining inputs can also shed light on any blind spots and help enterprises trigger appropriate actions or triggers to break down departmental silos, promote collaboration, and enable any course correction needed as organizations move along in their transformation journey. Um, so, yeah. So, and the last but not the least, the monitor stage of digital transformation, right, which kind of feeds back into the discovery stage, making it a continuous loop. So, what happens here? Even after executing improvement projects, enterprises need to continually review and analyze process performance to identify successes and bottlenecks. This stage helps enterprises monitor process performance against expected desired outcomes to identify further improvement opportunities and refine or update the transformation roadmap. Now, this stage is really important for organizations who are really looking to create an agile roadmap for digital transformation or looking to achieve benefits in an agile manner. Now, what process mining does here is once the digital transformation levers are implemented, process mining shifts enterprises from a reactive stage to a proactive stage. It helps operations managers, business users to keep an eye on the process performance. Consequently, it enables continuous monitoring and improvement along with agile transformation roadmaps. Now, what we are getting is process mining technologies are able to deliver near real-time monitoring uh, that really helps enterprises immediately notice failures in meeting any critical SLAs or potential KPI breaches. It can also be used to recommend ways such as resource reallocation, step elimination, and automations to improve process performance and resilience. To summarize, adoption of process mining technologies could yield several direct and indirect benefits, including cost savings, operational improvements, accelerating digital transformation, improved customer experience, and top line growth. Um, our analysis shows that process mining can result in a direct cost savings of about 20-25% in the process discovery stage as compared to manual and interview based techniques. It helps enhance customer experience as a result of the improved ability to identify and offer actionable insights to address customer pain points. Additionally, extraction of hidden process insights through process mining can uncover new cross sell or upsell opportunities or better ways of conducting business. Now, let's take a quick look at the importance of cloud, right? Cloud has become an important element for enterprises in pursuit of a digital-first business model. Different enterprises have different expectations from cloud technologies. For instance, for SMBs and small enterprises, the cloud providers or the cloud provides an opportunity to expand their digital capabilities. While for mid-size or large enterprises, the key driver is the ability to manage highly variable volumes and resource-intensive workloads. A cloud-based process mining solution offers additional advantages over an on-premise solution. Factors such as faster time to value, ability to support remote work, enhanced flexibility and agility, and high availability and resilience are driving increased adoption of cloud-based solutions. And COVID-19 has certainly further amplified or accelerated the adoption of cloud, especially in the context of enabling a digital first business model. I think we have talked a lot about the various benefits of process mining, the role that it plays in enabling or accelerating digital transformation journeys. Let's take a look at a couple of sample use cases to understand how businesses are currently realizing value from process mining. Now, the first use case here is related to days sales outstanding, DSO. And uh, as many of you would already be aware, DSO represents the average number of days it takes an enterprise to collect its account receivables. Enterprises often witness high DSO and struggle to reduce the same. Process mining helps address this challenge by identifying the accounts or clients with the highest overdue payments and monitoring the order to cash process in near real time and notifying relevant stakeholders from the accounts receivables team about potential cases of high DSO. From a customer experience standpoint, process mining helps analyze data across front and back office processes that impact the customer journey. It can highlight the interdependencies of processes such as sales, tech support, IT services, and operations, and create a unified source of truth. And that is essential for identifying bottlenecks and reimagining customer experiences. Now, data availability is again one of the key challenges that we see organizations face and who have started adopting a process mining solution. Now, availability of event logs data is an important consideration for adopting process mining solutions. Event logs data can be scarce, especially in market segments with relatively lower penetration of information systems. Even if information systems are available, sometimes enterprises do not have saved historical data. And that is a challenge because event logs is one of the core pieces of information that process mining technologies leverage to discover, monitor, and analyze processes. Now, if you look at some of the best practices to overcome this challenge. It's really about educating key stakeholders around the benefits of logging data through information systems and saving them for future use. Now, integrating with desktop process mining solutions or task mining capabilities to mine parts of the processes that do not generate event logs is another potential solution. The next challenge that we see organizations face is related to data quality. Now, just having the data is not enough if these are not in the right formats as needed by the process mining tools. This is particularly challenging in case of non-standard IT systems and can be quite time consuming. Some of the best practices that organizations can follow here is to involve evaluating the availability of pre-built connectors for various enterprise applications um, in the process mining tools under consideration. Now, leveraging ETL or extract, transform, and load tools and developing data lakes are also quite helpful in overcoming such challenges. The third challenge that we see organization face is getting started with process mining adoption, and apprehensions around a new solution's credibility, effectiveness, and lack of awareness could certainly delay or derail the adoption. And what we also saw was that, getting started or lack of awareness was one of the key challenges, or the one of the biggest challenges that people are kind of facing in adopting process mining. Now, some of the best practices here include educating and aligning stakeholders and senior leaders around the benefits of process mining to secure their buy-in, prioritizing processes that are structured, frequent, and require less data preparation, and securing some quick results to establish credibility, which can also go a long way in accelerating enterprise-wide adoption. Now, from an implementation standpoint, there are two key success factors. When we look at implementation, right, what we see is that organizations are facing challenges in really implementing process mining, not because of challenges with the technology itself, but some of the internal challenges such as siloed implementation, leading to lower return on investment. And some of the key success factors that organizations can adopt here is to really combine efforts across process excellence, automation, and digital transformation, and involving process SMEs and IT infrastructure teams right from the start to help with data analysis and overcoming system roadblocks, respectively. And I think this was one of the biggest challenges as well: the lack of appropriate stakeholder involvement, or lack of process SME involvement as part of the process mining implementation journey. Now, from an IT security and compliance perspective, proactive efforts to obtain buy-in from the IT security and compliance functions, and exploring on-premise or hybrid deployment models to keep sensitive data on the premises can help overcome roadblocks and apprehensions around data privacy. Operational transparency and greater visibility into employees' way of working through process mining is, again, one of the benefits of process mining, but it could also attract some internal resistance. Now, some of the best practices to overcome this include spreading awareness and proactively informing and addressing employee concerns around privacy, and educating employees about expected organizational benefits from adopting process mining solutions. I would like to conclude by saying that process mining is becoming a critical component of enterprises' digital transformation automation journeys, and its demand and adoption continue to accelerate. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or reach out via email to know more. Thanks, and over to you, Michael.
In addition to Amar, we have two esteemed practitioners in process mining technologies from Software AG, Roland Walt, he's with the Everest Business Transformation Solutions, and J.M. Erlandson with the Business Process Management. Gentlemen, welcome. Having heard Amar's expert view in regards to integral roles that process mining has in business transformation, we'd like to invite you to join Amar in discussing how technology tools such as Software AG's Eris can help organizations effectively move through their journey to digital excellence. As we move into our panel discussion, I want to invite the audience to feel free to ask our panelists any questions they may have. Questions, as mentioned, can be submitted using the questions section in the webinar panel. And in fact, before we start into the discussion, I did have a question that popped up during Amar's presentation. And the question, Amar, you had mentioned a cost savings of 20%. The question was, can you please explain, are we replacing software as well in this, or is it just optimization?
Sorry, Michael, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, the question was, when you say that there was a cost savings of 20%, was
Hmm.
this including replacing software or was it just the result of optimization?
Sure. So, no, I think it's good to kind of get an opportunity to clarify on that, 20% cost savings that I mentioned earlier. So it's basically comparing pre-process mining approach for process discovery and post-process mining approach to process discovery. And this is about the cost incurred by organizations, right? When they're adopting a manual or interview-based approach for process discovery, and when they use process mining to augment their manual or interview-based techniques, they are able to achieve about 20% cost savings there due to process mining adoption and the efficiencies that it brings to a table.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let me.
Oh, sure. Happy to do so. So, like I said, I'm working in our business transformation group here at Software AG, which is a mix of pre-sales, business case development, uh, high-level consulting, right? Trying to bring our solutions to our customers so that they can then apply the software in the right context. Um, to help with that, I bring about 25 years of consulting experiences with KPMG, with Accenture, with Software AG as part of their professional service or global consulting organization. And then on top of it, I spent 11 years in the army driving around with main battle tanks, having nothing to do with that computer stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, and now, JM, would you care to a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the discussion among the panel members.
Yeah, the other half of the What's Your Baseline podcast crew. It's J.M. Erlinson here with Software AG and also hosting that wonderful podcast, What's Your Baseline. I've been with Software AG for a little more than a decade, but I come originally from manufacturing engineering. So process was my king, but the process was literally with physical machines. And then spent some time in management consulting, but I've been working in a similar role to Roland at Software AG, both in the consulting side and then, of course, in the pre-sales and technical sales support side. So I preach best practices. I talk about our technology. But most importantly, I help organizations evolve their practice. What are they doing with it? Why are they doing that? And I wanted to address the question that Amar just got, if you wouldn't mind, if I can jump in here about cost savings. Because remember, we want to look at a couple of different places for cost savings. I think they were asking whether or not the cost savings were through, rationalization and harmonization of applications, or there was a process improvement, or how did it work out? And we find that the cost savings from process mining bridge a lot of different domains. You can see them as optimization of workforce allocation. So there could be a human resources element to it. We see those sorts of things happening in increasing in productivity from operational excellence. There was a study recently done by Forrester Consulting that Software AG's Eris had an opportunity to be part of, and they found that there were I think $3.5 million in some of the clients we were working with in terms of productivity and operational excellence-based savings. Then what Amar was talking about, which is the time required in order to do this kind of analysis. We saw hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think it was $600,000 in our clients' savings of the actual analysis time costs in order to get to their process mining insights and affect the way that their business operated. So you don't have to spend so much time looking into things. And then, of course, you do process reengineering. You change your flow. You change how it's implemented. So that involves harmonization of applications, that involves re-engineering the way in which the flows break down, the decision rules around it, and that can lead to significant savings in the actual operations of your business therein. So once again, we see millions of dollars, I think there's a couple $1 million of savings, literally $2 million in savings that we saw from our customers as a result of implementing and then ultimately harmonizing and being able to deliver better with their new technologies. And so the savings are real. They're tangible. They're in certain places where you're looking for them. But when you have the technology ready to go, you have the practice established in your organization, the buy-in from your leadership, you can really deliver on results.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, JM. That's really good. Let's now go to this being our panel. And in fact, before we start into some of the some questions that may pop up, I did have one again pop up while you were talking. And this one, we'll see who is best suited for. It says, how do you see the use of process mining in internal control and compliance? Are there any use cases or experiences in that?
Yeah, let me take a first step on this. Obviously, it depends on how you see it. Your internal auditors, your regulatory people, your first, second, and third line of people might be your foe or might be your supporter in projects. So they obviously have a big leverage. I see them obviously as a friend, and I see two cases where it can come in. One is the original work that they actually do, doing internal audits and seeing how controls are implied, because process mining will give you that visibility, right? It's not what somebody that you interview will tell you what they did, but you have the fact-based foundation. And I think Amar said this as well. This is a structural or a total change in the perspective of how to do process improvement. So you're looking at facts, you're not looking at opinions or experiences from individuals that you have in the room. The second thing that you have is, since you get this visibility, it allows your second line to definitely get a clearer perspective on which risks are there, what do people actually do we need to update our risk catalogs, do we need to rationalize our controls, and all these type of things, so that at the end of the day you end up with an integrated risk system. And what I've seen in the past with many customers is they are siloed and separated, go down to what they call the local risk events, where one location says, oh, we call it X, and the other one calls it Y. Nobody makes the connection that X and Y are the same. So process mining will help you with this, and it will give you the visibility into those details to have those two benefits.
Okay. Well,
And I just to tack onto that, I see that as a life cycle, right? You think about compliance and mining to understand operations. That ties in with process design for risk and compliance. It also ties into a cool feature of our platform at Everest called Read and Understood, which is all about validating that you've in fact read and understood the processes as they were laid out. And so that ties into something that Amar spoke about earlier, is training. So you can ensure that everyone has read the training material, who's most up to date on the processes that are focused on risk and compliance relevant activities. And then you can check back on that using process mining to discover conformance to expected process execution outcomes. So it does play a part of the life cycle. And as you move it towards an enterprise management system, it's definitely a component we take a look at. And a lot of our customers are looking at that pretty seriously.
okay. Well, that's good. JM, now, in addition to compliance and such that we just had as far as just discussed, we had another question that was actually submitted during registration that says, how can we improve the adoption of digital transformation in HR? And I assume that is a relevant category of focus.
Oh yeah. Does anyone else want to take this, or I can speak a little bit to it. So one of the things that I find that HR loves to understand is its impact. So they want to understand where the roles are, who is filling those roles, and how are those roles being used, and what do they need. HR ties a lot to things like learning and development. And once again, to bring it back to what you're talking about in terms of process and process execution, learning and development is part of the preamble to that, the training that goes into it. And so being able to use digital transformation, digital representations of processes means you're giving resources to your HR group what they need in order to understand the reach of the people that are in the organization, what the things they can control. So you're offering them quite a big carrot, which is saying, hey, listen, let's show you everything you need to know about every role that you've laid out. Let's even take your terminology and call it the golden source, the source of truth on how those roles are to be referred as. And now we can put you at the table for conversations about capability creation and how those capabilities pair into processes, how those affect organization and structures. So you give them a huge amount of power to influence and also to engage with your process excellence. And then of course you can check back and you can use that to drive insights that they need about employee performance, or they could be on usage of roles and division of labor, things that they'll want in as part of their continuous improvement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
And just to just to add to that, I think for scaling digital transformation, right, irrespective of whether it's HR or finance or procurement, I think one of the key and important aspect, right, is to really identify and select the right processes to start with, right, and really understand what is the as is state of your current processes and where are the bottlenecks, where are the challenges, and this is where process mining really comes and plays a significant role, a key role, right, to kind of really help create that healthy transformation pipeline that we talked about earlier, right? And that is the key, right, for all the later stages as part of the transformation journey, and HR is no different.
Yeah, well, and in that sense, we have a question associated that would fall more into this process mining discipline, and that was how have you seen data hybridize between traditional process mining and desktop level task mining? I know that you guys have run into this because we hear process mining versus task mining, and I don't know if who wants to take it first, but
Yeah, I think what we see right now is a little bit an artificial distinction. Obviously, it's different technologies. So for those of you who haven't been exposed to it, so process mining typically takes event logs, like Amar said, and discovers, recreates processes, and you can do analysis on this. Task mining or robotics process discovery typically uses bots that are installed on machines of users and record what the users do, screen scraping and all that stuff, and then do the analysis based on that. To me, it's complementary in a way that there are two major use cases that I see. The one thing is you have the overall process discovery, the higher level process where you have your steps, but you don't go into the details. But at some point in time, you might see a little spike, and you're wondering, why do we have that bottleneck on process step X, right? So you would use task mining to have a closer look at this. For example, do we have an issue with the user? Does the user not know where to click in our tool and is lost, right? Or do we have a specific issue with a vendor, if we're talking about a procure to pay process, for example? Do we have a vendor problem, or do we have a process problem? Or whatever it is, you get more details, and you can see the inefficiencies that might happen, or the incompetence that somebody might show, which has different outputs of activities. The second thing that I see is task mining can fill the gaps that process mining might not discover. So for example, not every activity that you do in your day-to-day work is recorded by a system. So how do we get the manual effort there to say, okay, I know it takes 5 hours to get from step A in my discovered process to step B. That's great. I know there's a bunch of manual steps happening in there. So how long do those manual steps take? And how long is the waiting time between those manual steps until I get from A to B?
And that's why it's so important. And I think, Roland, you and I would agree with this. And this is what Software AG has built its name around. That's why it's so important to put processes into a modeling system in order to collect those insights into something you can use, an operable process model that allows you to understand the decomposition, as Roland was talking about, and the follow through, as Roland was talking about. And otherwise, you're guessing and stitching it together manually and trying to figure out where those insights are going to lead you to a next action. And it's hard to see.
Yeah, and that brings me, without having too much of a shameless pitch here, that brings me to one very distinguishing perspective that we bring to the table that our competition doesn't have. A lot of the pure play process mining vendors say, oh, you don't need modeling. You know, you don't need all that other stuff. You just need our technology, and you do simulation in here, and then you automate the heck out of it. And you're good. In my perspective, I think you still need this. Nobody would build a skyscraper without creating a plan, right? So why do we implement IT in that way? So the way how our platform is set up is, when you think about a life cycle, is you create something like an enterprise baseline where you do analysis on it, what runs, and then you identify your improvement areas. You create solution designs that then go into a implementation, and then you have software that tracks the day-to-day execution, and obviously on the process mining level tries to find patterns and process compliance and what your users do as an input for the next iteration of that circle. So when you cut out the design platform out of it, you obviously lose something, and you just focus on one little aspect of that circle, but not the full life cycle.
And just to add to that, I like to describe classic process mining and task mining as providing macro level picture and micro level picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So classic process mining kind of provides that micro level workflow level view of for enterprise processes and workflows, and task mining really kind of provides that micro level view in terms of what are the key activities that are being performed across all those high level processes, what's kind of going underneath all those process steps, and organizations need both, right? So basically these two are two sides of the same coin, and there is increasing demand for a holistic and unified view of processes at both macro and micro level, which is driving demand for a hybrid process mining solution.
And you will see, Amar, to just top on that a bit, if you do that micro level, you obviously know what your users are doing. And all the vendors that I work with, RPA vendors that I work with, they use that as an input for the automation activities to take out the guesswork and the busy work.
Now, gentlemen, we're running out of time, of course. That's normally what happens. I've gone in through the open questions. I've got one that I'm going to sort of combine and throw at you, and we can finish on that. The other questions for those listening, didn't forget about you. We'll take care of those and provide that in our follow-up with all the questions and answers. But can you give examples of how process mining is part of a transformation journey? And perhaps maybe, since I know that you can't point to specific companies, are there industries and business functions that sort of take the lead where process mining adoption happens?
I can give a very specific example. Obviously, no names, but I work with a major manufacturing company. They do very heavy manufacturing, and what they were worried about is particularly a process for their ordering materials, order materials and service process. And that was all their internal procurement, how they get the physical goods that they need and the virtual goods that they need, like servers stood up for them as part of the internal operations. So this is not even a customer-facing process. This is a resource allocation process internally. And they knew sort of the whisper network, knew this was running very badly. People were complaining about the amount of time required, and what did that lead to? It led to maverick buying. The cowboys with credit cards just going out and making less than $50,000 purchases over and over again. But truly, that was out of compliance and problematic for the organization. So what they did is they used process mining and task mining to understand where the bottlenecks were in their process. What was it? What automations that were in place were not functioning in the fashion they needed it to, so where things were getting held up. And mostly it turned out specific vendors were causing issues, and people ended up fighting those vendors, causing issues with non-vendor orders. So other vendors' orders were getting delayed because of this particular set of problematic participants. And then RPA underneath it, or RPD, Robotic Process Discovery, was discovering where individual actors were not being able to handle their task queues that were being allocated. So there was a resourcing problem, there was a process problem, and there was a vendor interaction problem. All three of those things were solved with, or at least were highlighted as issues with this technology.
Yeah, and Michael, I'd like to give a little twist to your question. So one thing is, what you also see is the typical delay between industries. Finance is typically not on the forefront of anything. They just wait. So what I see is communications. I see high tech. I see, interesting enough, utilities or energy being interested in this. But what I also see is it's currently adopted by bigger firms. right? With enough people, with enough money, and maybe a little bit of slack to try out the new technology. I don't see this at smaller firms. From a perspective going forward, I think process mining, I'm not talking about 3 years or 5 years from now, I'm talking 10 or more, that will become like the speedometer in your car.
Mm.
It will be the instrument that you see, do we really do what we're supposed to do? Do we do this in the SLAs that we've defined, and so on and so forth? And I can't imagine that anyone would buy a car nowadays, except it's a Formula One car that doesn't have a speedometer.
Well said. Well, gentlemen, again, I want to thank you for all the information, the discussion, the information sharing, because this is something it's not just among us. This is something relevant to customers, to people that are in business and are looking to how do I use technology, how do I use, if you will, best practices to improve, because we're all confronting a changed and continuing to change business environment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as part of this effort to provide this information on this journey toward digital excellence, we have one more takeaway for the audience, and that is for all the audience attendees today, we are offering them a free copy of the paper authored by Amar, and which is titled Mine Your Journey to Digital Excellence, Role of Process Mining in Accelerating Digital Transformation. So that will be a free copy to all that we'll send out via email. Additionally, we want to, highlight the fact that we are focusing on bringing business value to our customers. That it's done through effective use of technology, but it's primarily to deliver business agility. Should any of today's attendees have questions not answered, because of time or whatever, or even when we do provide answers for what we have received, that you're facing in digital transformation, please feel free to contact us. Do this directly. We'll be glad to coordinate a discussion with you. We welcome the opportunity to answer questions and help organizations in their transformation journey. It is, we talk transformation, have been for decades, but it's changing. There are technologies that are now available to do things better, and our own personal experience in having done it multiple times, it allows us to do it more effectively in the best practices. So on behalf of Sage IT, Software AG, and the Everest Group, I want to thank all of you for joining us today and in sharing and discussing this valuable information, having the insight in what it can do for you, and how we can leverage it to accelerate digital transformation and provide digital agility for this ever-changing business climate that we're in. Are you ready for change? I hope so. So I want to thank you and appreciate all attending and participating.